Saturday Social is powered by EA Sports FIFA 23 with PlayStation.
Moving on now, we're going to start, because it's the first show of the new year, Joe, we're going to get the guests to get off the fence and give us their prediction for every single Premier League club. So do you want to explain the criteria behind this one? Because they've got their thinking caps on already, I saw that.
Absolutely. We're going to have a statement or a question for each Premier League club. 60 seconds to debate that statement. And I suppose when we look back on this in a year's time, you're either going to look very silly or very switched on, as you usually do. I think we start in alphabetical order with Arsenal, shall we? Let's crack straight on. It's a simple one, this. Will Arsenal win the Premier League this season? James?
I know for a fact that all Arsenal fans don't want me to say that they're going to win the league. So I'm going to stick with my head, which is not my gut. And my gut kind of says Arsenal, but my head says Man City will still win the title. They've got that strength in depth. I think if Pep Guardiola kind of reverts to type a little bit, they should still have too much. Haaland up top, with the amount of goals he scored, the amount of goals he should score, De Bruyne, they should have too much. But Arsenal are hanging in there.
I wish James were correct, but sadly he's completely and utterly incorrect here. I desperately don't want it to be true, but Arsenal will win the league. I don't really see how they won't from this point. I think Martin Odegaard, we need to start speaking about Martin Odegaard in the way that you talk about Kevin De Bruyne. I think he's so good. I think the level that he's playing at is sensational. They're managing to answer all the questions. Can they live without Jesus? The answer seems to be yes. Can they live with the intrusion that a World Cup will bring? The answer seems to be yes. A good point against Newcastle. They're going to do it. It's awful, but they're going to do it.
Ooh. Wow.
Nice. Bit of disagreement straight up. I love it.
Big disagreement on the first one. Next one, as Joe said, alphabetical order, so we go to Aston Villa next. The question is, will Unai Emery get Aston Villa into Europe this season? Currently 11th in the table, 6 points behind 7th. 60 seconds on the clock. Rory, what are you saying?
Yes, he will. I think he's a fantastic manager. I think that his record at Arsenal is weirdly sneered at. You know, he had Arsenal in a European final, and you think, look, Arsenal are a huge club, I'm not taking anything away from them, but their record in Europe is pitiful. He had that club in a European final, which is significant. I don't quite understand why he isn't necessarily given the credit that he deserves. If you rank managers, I don't think he's in the top tier, you know, the Klopp, Guardiola, Conte tier, but he is the jewel in the crown of the B tier. He will elevate that club. Villa are a huge club, the whole end in full voice. They'll make Europe.
Agree, James?
I couldn't disagree more. I like Unai Emery. I think they will trend in the right direction. But in terms of this season, I think those other teams are there's too many teams stacked ahead of them that aren't going to drop off. You've then even got, say, Chelsea, who can't get any worse, and so should be kind of, doing much better. We will see, of course. But yeah, I don't see, Newcastle would have to drop out. You've got those tops or big six sides. I think he's doing well, and I think he's setting a blueprint, but no way near Europe, in my opinion.
Only 2 clubs in, and both guests have said I couldn't disagree more.
I love it. It's a great start.
He started it.
It's a great start, and I want to see more of it, because next we go into Bournemouth. It's very simple, this one. Will Bournemouth stay in the Prem?
I really want Bournemouth to stay in the Prem. And I wonder if they'll spend that little bit of money in January and improve.
Because you were backing Gary O'Neill big time.
I was, but I said don't give him it permanently, because whilst it's a sort of summer romance, everyone behaves themselves a little bit better. I think that sadly they will get dragged into it, because I think the league's so strong this year. It's going to be interesting. I wish you'd asked me this after January, but I would imagine that they would get sucked into it. Those games where they were 2-0 up recently, there's a few of those. You've got to get those points before it starts getting tense and the teams down the bottom start winning. They didn't do that, and yeah, I think they'll get out.
Very articulate from James, but this one couldn't be more simple, could it? Bournemouth go down. In other news, water is wet. Of course they go down. There isn't too much to explore here.
That's so hard.
They're not a Premier League club.
That much of a certainty for you.
They are a Premier League club.
They're not a Premier League club. No, they are not.
That's why they're in this list.
They do not. No, they do not belong in the Premier League.
So hard.
They're not a Premier League club. In terms of what they bring to the Premier League.
Moving on swiftly to Brentford, who are flying high, aren't they? What a season they're having. Will Brentford keep hold of Thomas Frank? Recently signed the new contract, of course. Let's start with James.
Another club that some people would suggest don't belong in the Premier League, yet are doing incredibly well. So maybe that's how football works out. I would say that Thomas Frank will certainly be here till certainly to the end of the season, because I don't think there'll be that many changes or any jobs that he would want to go and take. I think he should stick with them for the long run, because I think when you do move on, say Dean Smith went to Aston Villa, you don't have the same structure in place. Brentford are a really smart football club, so I think he'll be there for the foreseeable. I don't see him going anywhere.
Agree?
Yeah, I think he'll stay. Because I don't really think that there's a perfect opportunity for him that lies elsewhere. I think he's an excellent manager for Brentford. I also think that he's totally intertwined into the fabric of that club. And it would be a terrible decision for Brentford to let him go. But I also think that what he's building there is something that he should commit to for the foreseeable, because, amazingly for Brentford, I don't really know what the ceiling is anymore. Like, he's doing so well that they could potentially play in Europe under him.
That would be incredible, wouldn't it?
Top manager, by the way, Thomas Frank.
Absolutely, he's doing such a good job there. Let's go to the next side then. Another side doing unbelievably this season. Brighton flying under De Zerbi, aren't they? This one, though, involves one of their star players, a World Cup star. Anyway, will Alexis McAllister leave Brighton this year?
This is interesting because I think his contract's to 2025.
Yeah.
And obviously, I think when you've got that World Cup spotlight, now is probably the time to possibly get the most money for him.
Cash
but
in.
generally, in January, you don't get that. I think they'll keep him till the summer because they don't have to sign him just yet. And I think they'll try and cash in the summer.
Right decision to cash in?
No, it isn't the right decision necessarily for the team. But I think sometimes the right decision for the club could be to cash in on a talent that has this amount of heat on them at the moment. He is an excellent player, and the reason why it doesn't necessarily feel like curtains for Brighton if they were to lose him is because their recruitment is so just exceptional, isn't it? You know, you look, they moved on Cucurella, in comes Estepinian. They are so good at doing that, and the way that club is run is a lesson to everyone. Like, you know, when they played Everton the other day, you think Brighton are everything that Everton are not, both on and off the pitch. Even if he were to leave, the biggest compliment you can pay to Brighton is, I don't think it matters to them.
Basuma, Cucurella. I looked at the combined outlay of the 4 goal scores against Everton as well. It was tiny, and obviously they scored 4 goals against Everton, so credit to the recruitment team. Next up is one I'm coming straight to Rory for first, because it is Chelsea. Quite simply, will Chelsea sign Mudryk, linked with Arsenal and Chelsea heavily? What do you think is going to happen, mate?
I mean, this one is completely up in the air. I genuinely don't know. On some level, I hope that we do, because from my understanding, he's a very good player, and the fact that Arsenal are pursuing him makes him that little bit more appealing. But equally, this is just another example of Chelsea's scattergun approach to transfers, isn't it? It's as if Todd Bowley has been scrolling the Twitter timeline and has seen, oh, this guy, Enzo Fernandez, looks good. He's won the Young Player of the Year at the World Cup. OK, great, let's buy him. Really, because you could have had him for 10 million quid very recently, and this one feels the same. Arsenal are after him, and therefore we're now prodded into action. No, we're not.
Yeah, another wide forward? Like, what are they even thinking? I think he's an Arsenal fan as well, from what I've read. I think he would suit them better in terms of the depth that they want in their team. This would be just... I get it, he's a good player, and that's fine, but you've bought Raheem Sterling in the summer. Like, what? You're right, they're just seeing shiny things and going, yeah, go on, then we'll have it. No. He shouldn't be going to Chelsea.
Okay, fair enough. While we're on the topic of wingers, let's go straight to Crystal Palace, because Wilfried Zaha, of course, his contract is up in the summer. But will he be at Palace next season? Is he going to sign an extension, Jimbo?
I can't see this happening. And I think it's one where I've seen some bits where Crystal Palace fans are kind of even going, let's enjoy him. Let's enjoy him whilst we've got him, because he's wanted to go for quite some time. I think he's wanted that big move. I know he had it when he was younger, but he's wanted it again. But they've never been able to get the money that they really wanted for him. And now with the contract ending, I think it's one where they'll sort of wave him off and say thank you, and he can go and get that move. I'd like to see him at Tottenham. I think he'd be really good at Tottenham. Yeah. I think he'd be great. And I think he's so special to watch. One-on-one, it's so difficult to stop him, and he scores goals. His output's been good for Crystal Palace. He's been an amazing servant for them, but I think everyone knows that it's the end.
I think he'll probably leave. I think he's an exceptional player, I really do as well. I got in a little bit of grief because I called him the best player that doesn't play for one of the big 6. And people started getting mad because I didn't say Declan Rice. But I think Zaha is borderline elite. Yeah. And given an opportunity at a club that could enhance the furtherance of his career, I think that he could really benefit by going somewhere bigger.
OK, moving straight on to the next club, that is Everton, and the question we are asking is as follows. Will Frank Lampard keep Everton in the Premier League? They're currently 18th in the table. Rory, coming to you first, 60 seconds on the clock.
I really hope that he's given the opportunity to do it. Obviously, I have a vested interest in this. I love Frank Lampard as if he were my father. I adore the man, and I desperately hope that he has an opportunity to keep them up. I don't necessarily think he will be given that time. I think that... No, I don't necessarily think he will. If you look at the way that Everton approach things, I think you could make a list of 10 things wrong with Everton and not put Frank Lampard on the list. I think the running of the club, the board, Bill Kenwright's role, I think there is so much wrong at Everton because they constantly change the managers, but the results stay the same. So I think they should back Lampard, give him a chance, but I feel the end may be near.
James, do you agree?
More brother than father, just to say. I think, I think from what I've seen over the years in football, I would be surprised if he gets to May as the manager of Everton, because the expectations of that club, they've got to find that kind of scapegoat when they're getting frustrated like that, and I think it could be him. I do think if Calvert-Lewin stays fit, I actually think they'll be fine. But he just can't stay fit. And that's
I thought they were pretty good against United last night.
But they've got a good midfield there, and they've got good centre-backs. It's not a terrible team. They're one player away.
Very harsh to lose your job off the back of that performance at Old Trafford.
Let's go to the next side then, which is Fulham. And this one is an interesting one, because obviously Mitrovic firing on all cylinders this season, 11 goals in the Premier League. But will they be able to keep hold of him come the summer? Jimbo?
Well, I do think that there's so many Premier League teams that want a striker, that aren't happy with that element of their game. He's not your sort of complete striker, but he scores goals. And I think it's one where it's truly down to him, I think. I think they will obviously want to keep him. Is he one that he's happy scoring goals like he has done over the last 2 years or several years? Or is he one where, like Louis Zaha back in the day, because I want that big move? I think they will keep him.
He's not going to be cheap either. He's got a long-term contract.
He's not going to be cheap, but he is ultimately going to be perceived as a bargain. He's a guarantee. He's a guaranteed goal scorer in the Premier League, and what comes with that is certainly interest. And when you think about two behemoth clubs, Chelsea, Manchester United.
Would you take him at Chelsea?
100%. Of course it would be an elevation on what we have in that position. And I also think it would be a very sensible thing for Manchester United to do. I think he's a top-class player, and because he's at Fulham, it feels slightly unglamorous, but I'd have him, no doubt. 11
goals in 15 Premier League appearances this season. 43 goals in the Championship last season. He knows where the back of the net is, doesn't he? Next up, Leeds United. Question we're asking about Leeds United is, will Jesse Marsch, similar one to the Everton one, isn't it, we just had, because it's so tight down there, will Jesse Marsch keep Leeds United up? Rory, let's start with you.
No, I don't think he will. I think they could be in trouble, because I'm thinking that Wolves are going to pull away. I think Lopetegui at Wolves is a very good shout, so that's going to open up a place. With regard to Marsch, ultimately, I don't really want them to go down. Of course, they're a huge rival of Chelsea. Of course, Chelsea and Leeds, there is an antipathy. We sing about them all the time. They sing about us all the time. But I also agree that Leeds United, the Premier League is so much richer, culturally richer, for having a club of the stature of Leeds in the league. You want Leeds up, really, but I don't think Marsch is going to do it.
James?
It's between them and Everton for me. And it depends on, like, Nonto, Somerville, those sort of younger players. Are they good enough to keep him up? I think Jesse Marsch has got the squad sort of behind him. Not sure he's got the fans behind him. And it depends on what's more powerful. If they start getting those results, then it will calm down the fans. But if it gets ugly, then you might need to bring in someone new. I think they might just go down.
Wow. Go down there. OK, let's go to Leicester then, where James Maddison is still the talk of the town, really, isn't he? So where will he be playing next season? James Maddison, 60 seconds. Roy, I'm coming to you first on this one.
I mean, I think he could be playing anywhere. I think he's a top-class player who is certainly capable of playing in the Champions League. I think if you look at where clubs that would benefit from his arrival, virtually all of them. I mean, Chelsea could certainly do with a player of his quality.
Heavily linked with Newcastle.
Heavily linked with Newcastle, and it would be that statement marquee signing for Newcastle. I think they need that, a little bit of stardust. Manchester United, I think, is also interesting for him. I feel like he could go anywhere, but if I were to put my cards on the table, I'm going to go Newcastle.
Jimbo?
Yeah, I agree. I think Newcastle's the right place for him. Look, Almiron's been amazing for them, but I think as the club and the team evolves, I think you need different styles of players, and on that right-hand side, he's actually playing like a forward a lot of the time. So to have someone in Maddison's role playing sort of on that right-hand side, but with a bit of freedom. I also like, he keeps smiling when people ask him about Newcastle. And he's got that little bit of arrogance, I think, that as a team that's trying to kind of step up a level, he would be like, yeah, OK, let's go and beat Arsenal. Let's go and beat these teams. And so I think he's a perfect fit for Newcastle.
Yeah. Interesting. OK, next up is Liverpool. And this is a man that has a lot of people talking on social media, isn't it? Darwin Nunez. Will he be a success this year? James, what are your thoughts?
What is success with Darwin Nunez?
What is
That's the thing I'm
You
struggling
know what
with.
success is.
Success is, Scoring, what's he got to score? 20, has he? Well, especially with the amount of chances that he's been having. He's certainly not been a success up until now. I know Liverpool fans want to say that they're using this word chaos in a different way. They used to go, chaos is a good thing. It's not. When you get chances, score the chances. He's not doing that yet. Will he come good in the second year? Maybe. But it's not happened as of yet, and it's not happened for Liverpool as of yet. I don't think he'll be a success this year. I don't think he'll get to 20 goals.
This year, he won't be a success. This year, if we're judging it on this season, it won't be a success. It's already been fairly poor. Look, there's been some moments where he's looked good, but there've been far more moments where he's looked incredibly profligate, sometimes completely at a loss in terms of what he's doing. And ultimately, this season, I don't think that... this season, it will not be a success. That isn't writing him off for the future, though.
Yeah, it's a tough one, that one, isn't it? Because
it's about expectations, and the problem is he came in with Haaland, so that's where your expectations are at the moment. And if you're a Liverpool fan, those strikers that come through, Fowler, Owen, all these guys, you've got to be at that level.
And you mentioned Haaland, it purposely on to the next one, doesn't it? Great work, Jimbo.
The one for Manchester City.
Excited.
And we've also got Rory Jennings on the sofa. Sub 15 goals, Rory Jennings, but will he break the all-time Premier League record now, Rory?
No, he won't.
Ooh.
He won't break the all-time goal-scoring record because I don't think he'll be here long enough. Of course, he has the capability, and again, yes, I was incredibly wrong when I spoke about Erling Haaland on this very show, and I apologise to everybody who had the misfortune of watching those words. But he will not break the goal-scoring record. I think Harry Kane is going to do it, and that will set a new one. But the 260 that was set by Alan Shearer all that time ago, I think will be safe with regard to Erling Haaland because he won't be in the Premier League for long enough.
Jimbo?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he'll kind of want to move on. I think players these days, do they want to stay with one club? I think it's amazing that, and Harry Kane's had that, he's flirted with Man City and different teams over the years, but he's stuck there, and staying there is a big thing. I guess the one thing you would say is that the Premier League is so, financially rewarding, and those teams do well in the Champions League as well. Why would you leave Man City? But I think he will. I think he'll want to go and have a story in different places like the Ronaldos and the Messis. Well, less so Messi, but the Ronaldos of this world. So
Got a bit of Zlatan's about him, maybe.
So what's interesting, though, it'd be interesting to see if he breaks the goal-scoring record for most goals in a season this season. That's the interesting one because he's on course.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think he does.
No doubt.
That'd be a massive disappointment for him.
Yeah, it would be very underwhelming end.
Unbelievable. Well on course to do so. Moving on to Manchester United, because we've got a lot of clubs to get through. Will Manchester United win a trophy this season? Last trophy was May 2017. That was the Europa League. James, 60 seconds on the clock. What do you think?
No, I don't think so. I think the focus will be the league, and I think that's fine. Although Ten Hag put out a strong team, didn't he, against Everton? So maybe he's after that. I think the FA Cup is a good shout for them to try and get there and get that done. But I think the focus will be on the league, and I would imagine that they would miss out because of that.
They got quarter-finals against Charlton in the Carabao as
well.
Yeah,
Ten Hag also spoke about his love for domestic cup competitions, didn't he, in his pre-match from his Ajax days as well. Your thoughts? Is this the year they lift the trophy?
I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in January. If they sign somebody to ease the goal-scoring burden on Marcus Rashford, then I think that there is a chance. I'm actually going to say yes. I think I can see them winning a trophy under Ten Hag. It's a very rare situation for me to find myself in, perhaps never been done before, where I find myself I quite like the Manchester United manager. I think he's handled so much so well.
Yeah.
I don't think he's put a foot wrong since he's been in the job, and therefore it would be a miss for me to say that he won't win a trophy.
Weirdly, there's no pressure on them to win a trophy, and that might help them win a trophy.
Got to shout out Rashford as well. He's on some form.
He's unbelievable.
Form of his life,
really
unbelievable. Let's go to Newcastle, shall we? And we're going to be talking about Eddie Howe getting them into the Champions League. Will he do it? 60 seconds on the clock, Jimbo.
I think they will tense up a little bit.
Get off the fence.
I'm getting there. I've got 30 seconds.
Rory will get off the fence. Don't worry about that.
It's called a dramatic pause. I think they will just miss out.
Oh,
I think their defence is unbelievable, but in terms of scoring goals, and maybe they'll buy that player in January to allow them to do it. But I think that they might just tense up a little bit when it gets to March and get gazumped.
I've got Isaac back in training though.
No, they make it. They make it. Look, I think there's some jeopardy about whether they finish third or fourth. I think somebody may elevate over them to get the third spot. But I can't see two clubs managing to eclipse them. I think that they'll do it. I think Eddie Howe has been sensational. I think I would have him, regardless of what happens, as long as they make the Champions League, I have him as manager of the year, which is it's a very rare thing that you generally win that award by winning the league. I think only Tony Pulis and Klopp have done it without. But I think that he has been amazing, and I think that he will get that club in the Champions League.
Yeah, done a brilliant job, Eddie Eddie Howe. Unbelievable job. Next up is Nottingham Forest. You think of Nottingham Forest synonymous with signing, so that's exactly the route we're going down by asking you, will Nottingham Forest stay up if they don't sign any more players in January, James? Why are you smiling?
I just loved I loved Cooper's interview. He asked him and he went, yeah, we're still kind of in the market for it. And he knew he needed to then validate why he would need more signings. Yeah. I don't think they do. I think you're starting to see what he wants to put forward in terms of the midfield and the team. Like Freuler in centre midfield with Mangala and Yates. There's a hard-working midfield there, which I quite like. I really like Brennan Johnson. I think he's only going to get better. And Awani, I thought, was a great signing at the start as well. So I would stick with that. You've got a whole new squad. I don't think you need any more players. You need to bed in the chemistry.
I think it's very difficult because I think if they... I agree with James. I think they do need the chemistry, and it is a little bit robust to go out again and spend more money. But I don't think that the players that they have are good enough to keep them up. So as things stand, I don't think they can stay up. So I feel like they need to do something different. But bringing in more players feels a bit like a Hail Mary. I think it's a shame. I want Forest in the Premier League. I think they add to it massively. You know, there's been a long time without them. But I think that they're going to go down with or without signings, to be honest.
Another team that could potentially be facing the drop this season, Southampton, up next. And if they were to go down, I suppose, is will James Ward-Prowse leave Southampton in the summer?
I think this feels a bit like Zaha, but obviously a slightly different situation. If Southampton go down, I think they will go down. I feel like this is harsh because I just think the level's so elite when it comes to managers, but I think they've got the most inexperienced and the worst manager in the league in terms of Nathan Jones. I don't think he's got the gravitas, and I think he's rolling the dice a lot of different times with the lineup. I don't get it. So I think they'll go down, and I think it's only fair that James Ward-Prowse then moves on. Also, you can get a good fee for him because he did sign a contract, I think, about a year ago. So I think it's only fair. Yeah.
I mean, James Ward-Prowse is a Premier League player. Like, he isn't a player that should be playing his trade in the Championship. I think Southampton are on their way to the Championship as well. I don't think anything's going to stop that. I think they are looking so poor, so devoid of ideas. I think Jones is out of his depth. I can't see a way that they survive. And with all that in mind, James Ward-Prowse needs to go somewhere else. I mean, I was making a case that James Ward-Prowse should have gone with England. So, of course, I think he should be playing in the Premier League.
He'd be another good one for Newcastle.
Yeah, agreed.
Ooh. OK, perfect timing as well, because there is the ding. Next up, we are talking Tottenham Hotspur. And the trend that we are talking about for this one, the question, should I say, is will Antonio Conte be the Spurs manager next season? Did you write this just to wind me up? Top manager, top club. Of course he's going to be. Joe's trying to wind me up with this one.
Question could have said next week.
Rory, what do you think?
Yeah, you could have swapped. Will Antonio Conte be the Tottenham manager next week? Yes, I think he probably will be.
Ooh.
I think he probably will hang around. It's gonna massively depend on what happens this season, though. If they make it into the Champions League, I think he stays. Equally, if Daniel Levy starts giving him some money, if Joe Lewis and Daniel Levy have a conversation and they realise that they need to give him some significant money, there is no point in giving him, bits and bobs. They need to really commit a war chest to him. But yeah, I think he will hang around, Conte.
Agreed?
Yeah, I do. I think he's petulant at times. It feels like, But I don't see where else he goes off to. I mean, I was just thinking there when we were talking, like PSG, does he go there at some point? He's not going to be going to Man United anytime soon, which was one that he was linked with before, going back to Juventus. I think he's almost a bit stuck, but also Tottenham Hotspur is a good club to be at. I think sooner or later it will come, Smithy.
Thank you, James. Tottenham's a good club to be at. Antonio Conte's a good manager. I like it.
I don't want to hear any words about Tottenham Smithy. Let's go to West Ham then, where there's lots to talk about Declan Rice at the moment. So where is he going to be playing next season? Predict it.
I mean, it's just got to be Chelsea, hasn't it? It's just got to be Chelsea. Chelsea are so in need of Declan Rice. Everything that Declan Rice does on a pitch is so lacking at Chelsea. Sometimes you look at the situation at Chelsea, you look at the situation at West Ham, and it's just so obvious. 2 and 2 does quite often make a Christmas cake. And Declan Rice desperately needs to sign for Chelsea. I mean, he's a box-to-box midfielder. He has that drive, that determination that our midfield is so clearly lacking. And I'm going to be heartbroken if he cannot come back to Stamford Bridge, be reunited with his best mate, Mason Mount. This one just has to happen. If James doesn't say Chelsea, I'm going to riot.
I think it's an absolute... I kind of want to see that. I think it's an absolute shocker if he doesn't go there, because the other team that I look at Man United, and I've always thought he'd be a nice fit there. I know you've got Casemiro, I know things are going well, but he's better than McTominay, and I think you could not have him in that England role, but having that more box-to-box role where he can kind of get about and use his energy. But Chelsea is the correct answer if they've got the money, but it looks like they're going to get Enzo Fernandez instead.
OK, lastly, alphabetically, of course, is Wolverhampton Wanderers. The question we're asking is how high will Lopetegui take Wolves this season? James, 60 seconds on the clock.
I think it'd be one of those where they just sort of cruise away kind of near the end of it. I'd expect them to strengthen in January. It's the striker position as ever with them because they just don't score enough goals or create enough. But I think they've got enough quality there defensively as well. There's a lot of good elements, and I do think it'll be one where it'll be a bit sticky for a while, and then it'll get to, again, March, and I think they'll start to pull away. So I would say 16th, 15th.
Bang on. Not often I say that about James. They'll finish 16th. Yeah, I can't see a world where they don't pull away from the relegation, but they don't pull up any trees either. They're going to survive. Lopetegui's an excellent manager, and they're in quite a privileged position because they know what they have to do. Find a way of scoring goals. You know, when you look at certain other clubs and you think, OK, well, you know, you need a defence, you need a midfield, you need an attack. Theirs is very simple. Simply find a way of getting the ball in the back of the net and they'll be absolutely fine. And I believe Lopetegui has enough managerial acumen and experience to work out how to score a few goals.
OK, there we go. That completes our predictions for all 20 Premier League clubs. Big thanks to James and Roy for that.